Hi there. Welcome to the Sober Circle channel. Enjoy this speaker tape.
I'm Cliff Roche, and I'm an alcoholic. I think I'll get stage fright. Wonder if they ever refuse a drink. I'm afraid of glasses. No, thank you. I'm very, very grateful to be here. I'm very, very grateful to be at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous anytime, any place. Everything I know about living, I learned here. Everything I know about getting along with other human beings, I learned here. Anything I know about compassion or love or tenderness or good thinking, I learned here. I didn't know nothing when I got here. I didn't know anything about living, and I learned it from you. And so I'm grateful to be here anytime, any place. It's a funny cure for a disease, isn't it? Oh, one thing, I'm really glad you guys follow the traditions here. You're certainly not organized. That's really fun to be the speaker, and you're just trying to get the cramp in the leg from leaning forward. They say, "We're going to wait." What were we waiting for? But it's, you get an airplane and fly over here and have a fantastic dinner with my old pal Howard and my former baby Warren. And a lot of other nice folks, great dinner, a lot of fun, a lot of laughter, and come down here and share, and that's a cure for a disease. That's the strangest cure for a disease. It's a wonderful cure. Of course, I had a lot of trouble. You 2 or 3 newcomers that admitted tonight and the other 20 that didn't, a lot of these old fools will tell you you have a disease. And if you were hip and slick like I was and brilliant, you know that they're nuts. A disease. One guy told me, "You have an allergy." I know about allergies. Come on. I'm allergic to the damn sun. Can you imagine having an allergy? Like, try that. If I go in the sun, I have to go to a guy and he cuts things out of me and burns them and hurts like hell. So I don't go in the sun. And I don't need a sponsor not to go in the sun either. I don't have to read any books and go to meetings. I just don't go to the sun. But unfortunately for me, I love to surf. I'm the oldest surfer on the Pacific Coast. Oh, you might say I'm obsessed with surfing. So I go surfing. What I do is I get up at dawn and I go out there, and I surf until the sun starts getting warm. Then I get out and go home. I control my surfing. And then that weird Al-Anon looks at me funny all day. And I don't run out and say, take my shirt off and say, "Take this!" Tell you the truth, the sun doesn't do all that much for me, really. Sure as hell never helped me dance. I've often thought if you went to a doctor and he said, "Cliff, you have an allergy to peaches. If you eat a peach, you're going to feel like Jack Dempsey in The World's Greatest Lover." "Oh, really? Thanks." I'd go get 3 peaches, But my allergy is just such that I just love alcohol. I just love what my allergic reaction to alcohol is wonderful. I just love alcohol. I love the taste of booze, too. There are people, these yo-yos, that do get up to these podiums, and say, "I never cared for the taste of alcohol." How would you care for the taste of these? Because I love the taste of alcohol. I like it all. I like rum and brandy and cognac and wine, and I love sour mash bourbon whiskey, the best. Yeah, there's one. Yeah, when I was 17 years old, my old man showed me how to drink sour mash bourbon. Get a little bit of water, just enough to rinse your mouth. And then you take a big triple shot of bourbon and say, "Bang!" I just like burns. I love that burning. That just going down there. Then you take the water, you go. Then you swallow the water, and then the best part, you breathe out through your nose. Got it. One night I got going on that at home. I must have done 10 minutes talking about that, and there's these three newcomers in the back. They just got up and said, "Oh, the hell with this." We never saw them again, so I'm careful about that now, And I love the way it goes to work down there in my Labanza, and I like after a little while, after 4 or 5 or 6 of them, my fingers get a little numb, and then after a little while my nose gets numb. And when the nose gets numb, nirvana cannot be far behind, God, I used to lose glasses by the dozens, and they would just slide off, and I would never know it. And then I'd hear, "What the hell was that?" Then a little while after the nose went numb, I don't know. I've only got my story. It's my story, and it was a very expensive, painful one, and so I'm going to tell it. About a few minutes after that, after I'd been drinking about 40 minutes, I had about 8 minutes where everything was all right. So I don't know what it was like for you, but see, I have always been crazy. I was crazy when I was 4 years old. I lived on the Speedway in Venice. That'd make anybody crazy. And, I can remember these little things, this little rat that I was standing out there by that Speedway, watching the cars go by going, I didn't know this yet, so and that's the way I lived my whole life. I lived with terror, and I lived with anger overriding, anger over everything else, and a hole in my gut. And I hated you because you had what I wanted. I didn't know what the hell that was, but I sure as hell didn't want what I had. And that's long before I ever had a drink. And I lived crazy. And I've been sober a long time tonight. And I'm still crazy. But I'm happy crazy, And not everybody who comes to this program is crazy. I know that. I've sponsored guys, that their problem was drinking. Then they got sober and they went onward and upward. And I hate their guts. Not really. No, I don't envy any of those guys. I'm glad I'm crazy because it keeps me in this thing all the time, and the happiness, the joy I've found from that. But there was that 8 minutes after I drank about 40 minutes where I would just sit there. Even that last couple of rotten years, I'd sit in that greasy green chair and talk to the newscasters. Whether the set was on or not didn't make any difference, And there, that 8 minutes was just kind of like. I wasn't afraid, and I wasn't angry. I was just at peace. You'd have stopped me on the street and said, "What's serenity?" I would have said, "It's 8 minutes, 40 minutes into my drinking." Because that's the only serenity and peace of mind I ever knew in my life. I don't know what it was like, but that's what it was like for me. The first time I drank, I was in high school. I was 15 years old. I was raised in this alcoholic family. My mother died of alcoholism, and I sure as hell think my dad was an alcoholic. You might say I'm an adult child of alcoholics. Everybody's the adult child of somebody, I always say. I know a guy's the adult child of a Baptist, for Christ's sake. Can't make love standing up. They say, "You're dancing. Stop that. Stop that." I was thinking the other day, how'd you like to be the adult child of an Amway dealer? Go through your whole life like this. And it was an insane asylum where we lived, and I always said I'll never be like them. And I never intended to be. And why at the age of 15? I don't know. This other little weenie and I were out behind this lunch stand, and we were going to this high school dance, and I was 4'11", weighed 89 pounds. 12 pounds of that was pimples. And I was raised in this Irish Catholic family. Oh, no kidding, yes. And all the men in my family were rough and tough and hard to bluff, just really tough guys. And I had this back problem, big yellow streak down the middle of it. And this other little guy and I, we had this half a pint of that World War II 10 High, that elixir of the gods. And we each had a quarter party pack. Party pack, that dates you, doesn't it? What the hell is party pack? Anyway, we gagged it down. I don't know what happened to the other guy. I've never seen him in a meeting. But I got that quarter of a pint down in me, boy, and those pimples went. And I grew a lot. You know, and I went to that high school dance, and I had the best time I ever had in my whole life. I was the life of the party. There were only about 3 girls in the school I could dance with that were small enough, you know. That night I danced with all of them. You know, come on, baby, let's go. You know. So I didn't care where my face was. I just out there way out of west. Yeah, I did a lot of that bumping that night. If any of you guys like that, I was one of those, hey, watch where you're going. Hey, you know. I bruised several guys' knees that night, you know. Oh, I had a wonderful time. And I remember about halfway through that evening, this voice in my head said, where has this stuff been? Now you know how to live, Cliff. And a couple of weeks later, I couldn't wait, and I drank a 5th of port wine. And, man, I had a blackout. Now, I've been doing a survey the last few years in AA, and I was trying to find somebody who had good blackouts. Now, I never had a good blackout. I never woke up in the morning and found I'd helped the Little Sisters of the Poor all night or something like that. First blackout was like the last blackout. They tell me, much of my life is hearsay from now on, right? You know, spent the rest of my goddamn life sin. I did? Oh, I'm sorry. No kidding. Your grandmother, huh? Gee. But that night they tell me that I tried to whip every guy. We're at some beach party out east of Bakersfield there, and all these guys beat hell out of me, and I tried a couple of the smaller girls, and they whipped me too. And I tried a deputy sheriff, and I went to jail. 15 years old, beaten to a pulp, in jail. And I woke up terrified, and I said, boy, I'll never do that again. I never did. I never drank port wine again as long as I lived. All those years I never had a glass of port wine. But that's pretty much my drunkalogue. You know, if anybody dozed off for a minute, you missed it. That's the story of my life. You know, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of times I drank and had fun. You remember that, don't you, huh? Only in an AA meeting do they know what you mean. Fun. I just like to watch their eyes glaze over when I say that. Don't say that in an Al-Anon meeting. They don't like fun. They have fun. Oh, yes, we had lots of fun last night, didn't we, Cliff? You know what I mean, the fun! Getting a shit beat out of you and going to jail. Fun! Finding your car at the bottom of a ravine in the morning. With you in it. Fun! Oh, it's just like that dog in the call of the wild. I could not resist fun. You know, I'd had one of those days when they'd been out to get me and got me. And I owed $1 million, and, you know, it was all crap, and I hated the world, and Howard would come by and say, come on, Cliff, let's go have some fun. Ah. You know, but all my life I wanted to be tough, and I wanted to be a real man, because I was raised in that Irish Catholic family, I don't know, and I never made it. But if I could get enough booze in me, I could become brave. Now, I always thought brave and tough were synonyms. That's insanity. No, that's... See, about the time I get enough booze in me to be brave, I'd lose my muscle coordination. And I became one of the great beating takers of all time. I would just think he's got him lit. I was proud of him. And I had trouble with the second step when I got here. That's crazy. I remember one time I woke up in Long Beach one time. A bunch of us had come down from Bakersfield to Long Beach to have some fun. And we were in this flea bag hotel. I thought I was blind. Well, I had bled face down on this pillow all night, seeing it dry. So when I came up, the pillow came with me, see? God, I'm flailing around, and this other guy and I get in the sink in the corner. We'd throw water on this pillow for what seemed like an hour. I was smothering in there, you know. Finally, you know, I looked in this mirror on the dresser. I said, put the pillow back. I just looked like Quasimodo, you know. I'll never forget the guys who were with me. I don't know if you identify with this. These four guys then with me, they said, you were great, Roach! They said, you got up 19 times! Kind of friends I had my whole life, you know. I met this beautiful young gal in college. The way she puts it, the rocks in her head fit the holes in mine. And we entered this 20-year suicide pact together, and we had a dual disease. We had alcoholism and Catholicism. And consequently, we had a kid every 9 months and 20 minutes, it seemed like, you know. So like every time I came out of a blackout, who is that? And we ended up with 5 of them, and they're all right when they're little. They're like kittens. They grow up, you know, geez. In the meantime, for some strange reason, I became a school teacher, can you imagine? The kind of guy that bites bartenders in the face became a school teacher, you know. I was famous for that. The places I drank, the bartenders wore clip ties, you know, so I couldn't get them over that. You know, and I attacked people with tire irons and things like that, and for being a school teacher, I became very paranoid about my blackouts because, you know, the kind of things I do in blackouts, they have a tendency to call you up to Sacramento and say, could we have your teaching license back, please? You know, so, and I always remember that, trying to control those blackouts, try not to have blackouts. You know, I would do anything, eat even. Crazy things like that, you know. But the years went by, and I taught a few years up in the San Joaquin Valley, and then we moved to Oceanside. Now, those of you who don't know, Oceanside's about 30 miles above San Diego. Not far from the Mexican border, lucky for me. And I loved it there at Oceanside, and I became, if it's not a contradiction, a rather successful school teacher there in Oceanside. And the drinking has probably surprised no one. It kept right on progressing. Although the blackouts decreased, alcohol became more and more and more necessary for me to live. I don't know what you were like, but I could not have survived a 24-hour period without some kind of sedation. And when you hear the way I live, why, you probably understand. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1965, for God's sakes, the first time. Another teacher and I had gotten this surfboard shop down on the beach in the summer. We thought, hey, we'll make $1 million and we won't ever have to teach again, you know. And the mayor of the town, of all people, donated us this little building right on the beach. I mean, on the water. Can you imagine, for 2 drunks? Anything but, of course, it was kind of beat up. We had to put windows in it, fix it up, and we got a refrigerator. A couple months later, we got some surfboards. No big goddamn hurry, you know. We had these 2 chaise lounge chairs. Oh, and we became sunset connoisseurs. We used to measure sunsets by martinis. Oh, we loved that. We'd sit in those shades. I'd say, looks like about a 7 tonight, Woody. You know, the best sunset we ever had was a 15 martini sunset. It was beautiful, you know. And the sun and Woody and I went right together. They found us in the morning with sunburned mouths. Remember that? But in February of 1965, I went down to the shop. Of course, we were closed. It was wintertime. There wasn't any more business. I just went down to repair a board. And I was not a morning drinker in 1965. As far as I know, I'd never had a morning drink. And I was working on the surfboard there, and I got thirsty, and I was looking to see if there was a Coke or something in the refrigerator. And Woody'd been there the night before. He's on the program. Took him 10 years after me. He's stupid. And he'd been there the night before, and he had left about this much vodka in a half pint. You know, like a drink. And there was some orange juice in the refrigerator. And I thought, God, a screwdriver would taste good. So I mixed up. There's only enough for one. I drank the screwdriver. And I went on about my business, and I'm working on the board. And I love to remember this for you 33 newcomers that are here. And about 20 minutes went by, and my mind talked to me. Remember that? All the newcomers are going, how do you know? You know, because your mind's been talking to you since I've been up here. What this guy thought, he's crazy. I don't want what he has. You know? But I used to listen to him. When my mind would talk, I'd say, what? You know, I always answer. And that morning my mind said, what a filthy trick that was. You finished Woody's booze off like that. Why don't you go up and get him a pint, for God's sakes, you know? Just a hell of a guy, huh, you know? I remember that afternoon I got him a fifth. And, you know, and that evening I just was falling down drunk. You know, my old man used to say, bory-eyed drunk. Just resin all over me. The board was ruined forever. The shop was a mess. And I didn't know what had happened to me. And I lurched home and I told my wife, I said, God, I got to do something about my drinking. This is ridiculous. I'm getting drunk when I don't even mean to. And she had cut this little thing out of the paper about Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, if you want to stop. Don't know why she thought to do that. But anyway, I called AA, you know, purest motive I ever had coming here. And the next day, a guy named Stan, who's still sober today, came out and got me and took me around to some meetings. And I thought AA was the most boring place seemed like everybody's name was Clem. And his wife's name was Martha. And there's a little speaker meeting there in Oceanside every week. I went to it whether I needed it or not, you know, and I used to take the last chair in the last row, you know. They had a sign, I remember. I never forget that sign. It said, we care. I hung around maybe 20 seconds after the meeting one night. Nobody came up and threw their arms around me. So I knew they were phonies. But anyway, every week they'd get either Clem or Martha up there to talk, you know, and what I heard them say was that they had been good, decent, worthwhile, happy folk their whole lives. But they had drunk too much. And they had drunk too much for quite a while. And after a while, the drinking just started interfering with their happy, carefree, wonderful lives. And so they'd come to the A&A and put the plug. And they had returned to being good, decent, worthwhile folk again. They had been rehabilitated. Now, my hero in 1965 was a guy named Eldridge Cleaver. Now, he was a black militant terrorist, you know. That's my politics in 1965. Blow it up or burn it down. I didn't give a shit. I was for peace. You know, and if you weren't for peace, I'd kill you. And I'd gone down a couple of months before and listened to old Eldridge give a speech down in San Diego. And that night, old Eldridge was talking about the prison system in California and about how they were always trying to rehabilitate him. He says, you know what they'd never known? He had never been rehabilitated. And he said, you can't rehabilitate somebody who's never been rehabilitated. See, and that's how I felt in Alcoholics Anonymous. Evidently, old Clem and Martha, at some time in their life, had been all right. They had been rehabilitated. That's not my experience. I have always been nuts, long before I drank. And I couldn't stand to live in the world. My nerves used to hand out into my fingers that far, you know. My skin crawled by 5 o'clock in the evening. You say hi, I'd go that high in the air, you know. And I was venom-filled and hate-filled. And the only peace of mind I ever had was the 8 minutes. And they wanted me to give that up to hang around with Clem and Martha. So I went out and drank again. You know? And I drank for a couple of years. That's a slip. Then I came back to AA one time for 30 days, and then I drank for a year and a half. Then I came back to AA one time for 40 days, and I drank for another year and a half. My favorite time, I came in the afternoon one time about 4 o'clock. I went to the old club there in Oceanside, and there, old Don the barber, who's still sober today, and these other 3 guys, they got around in quadro stepney. Did you ever have that when they get on all 4? Jeez, that's the best I ever had the message. You know, I just kind of floated out of the club, and I went up to old Big John's house. My buddy Big John knocks on the door, and John came to the door, and I said, "John, we're alcoholics, and we have to go to AA." Big John says, "Okay." He had drunk 3 weeks too long by then, you know. So I took old John, led him to the meeting that night, and became his sponsor. And the next day, we both got drunk. You know, I was terminally different. I was dying of uniqueness. And I almost never got back here. I almost died of uniqueness out there. I almost died of being different. And one of the things one of the lies my old man told me a lot of lies, but one of the worst ones he told me was, if you eat breakfast and go to work, you can't be an alcoholic. He never said a thing about cooking breakfast up, you know, so every morning, off I'd go, you know. And I don't know what you're like, but see, I'm a working son of a gun. I got to do 10 times more than you to prove I'm half as good. That's the way I live all my life. I had to do more than anybody else. I'm a working fool. Well, fool anyway, you know, but anyway, I'll tell you one more story. I'm going to get sober here pretty soon. My sponsor has a little watch, and he sets it, you know, he'd be right in the middle of World War II, and it goes beep. He says, and then I got sober. Otherwise, he'd never get out of the goddamn war. But among other things I teach speech. I'd love to say that, and then they all go, uh-huh. Yeah, well, anyway, the principal calls me, and I taught at Oceanside High at that time then. The principal calls me in one day, and he said, "Hey, Cliff," he said, "they're having a debate and speech tournament down at San Diego State College. It's 30 miles down the road." He said, "Why don't you get some kids and see if that's something that they'd like? This debate sounds like something that'd really be good for them." So I said, "Okay, you know, he's the boss." So I found about 5 or 6 dummies that were willing to give it a go, and we tool on down 30 miles down to San Diego State. We were amazed when, God, these speech tournaments are big deals. There were like 50 schools participating, like 500 contestants. All of them dressed better than I am tonight, you know. And we were in Levi's and sweatshirts. What the hell we know? And we got annihilated. We did not win one round. I don't like to lose. I don't know what kind of drunk you are, but it ticks me off to lose. So I'm steamed at any rate, and I go in the coach's room, and there's about 20 of them in there, and they all know each other. They're all pals. You know how we love that, you know. And they ignored me, it seemed to me. So I hung around all day so they could ignore me longer, you know. One guy there really ticked me off. He had a lot of hair. That bothered me right away. You know, one is that, but it was one of those gray manes, you know, not a hair out of place, just like a lion's mane, you know, beautiful, and about a $700 suit on. You know, the other coaches did this when they went in front of him, you know. And it's kind of the guru, kind of the Howard of the speech coaches, you know. And all of a sudden, about 2 in the afternoon, this clown turns to me and he said, "Where are you from?" God, I was grateful to be spoken to. I said, "Oceanside." He said, "Oh, where's that?" 30 miles up the goddamn... The guy gave me a resentment. No, I don't mean a resentment. I mean a resentment, you know. I don't think a day went by for the next 4 years where I didn't think about that sucker. And I went back to Oceanside. I went through the IQ files of the school. I found the 50 smartest kids in the school. I'd stop a kid in the hall and say, "You're a debater." Kid said, "I don't want to debate." I said, "Didn't ask you that. Get your butt in the room." They went. It always kills me when they say alcoholics don't have willpower. You know, that's silly. Willpower we don't have, but willpower we have. And anyway, the other teachers went home 4 o'clock. I'm there 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock every night. And I'm bringing them in the room, there 2 or 3 of them every half hour, and I'm screaming, and I'm cursing, and I'm ranting and raving. I'm coaching! Some reporter one time asked one of my students, "What's the secret of your coach's success?" The kid said, "Terror." He wasn't lying. You got any idea how much work that is? To make 50 people do what they don't want to do? You just get wound up when you do that. Your nerves are killing you. You got to drink. Lucky for me, out in the glove compartment of the car. And I never touch it all day. That's the kind of drunk I am. I don't have to drink all day. My sponsor's the kind of guy, he has a beer at lunch and see him 3 years later, I go to work every day and I do the job, and that little bottle, that half a pint of whatever thrift he had in the basket that goddamn week, would just sit there in that glove compartment and talk to me all day. Say, "Go get him, Cliff, baby. I'm waiting for you, darling." "Go get him, Tiger." And I'd finish with that last kid in the evening, and "Night, Mr. Roche." "Get the hell out of here," Frederick March getting in the car, And I'd open that cheap vodka, and I'd light the big cigars I smoked in those days, and I'd drink half of it always, first thing. 1/4 of a pint of greasy vodka. Coming down. Is there anything in the world that can do it for you like that, huh? You took every goddamn psychiatrist in the world end to end, could do not one modicum of good that half a pint of greasy vodka will do for me. It just landed in the old bonds like Clancy says this. What was bothering me a while ago? And I'd sit there and smoke that cigar and think, "God damn, I'm a good coach." And then I'd go hide the bottle. I guess I thought they were going to fingerprint in the morning or something. I don't know. And I'd drink the rest of it, and then I'd sit there in that car and I'd puff on that cigar in the darkness of that car. Let that vodka do its magic, huh? And I'd think about that gray-haired son of a bitch down in San Diego. Never a day went by where I didn't remember him. And then I'd go home and get drunk. In the last 4 or 5 years, I got drunk every night at home. And I'm a foul-mouthed, violent drunk. And I'm a real cruel drunk. And I'm a very sarcastic, mean drunk. And I got drunk every night at home. And 3 of my kids were in high school, and we're talking the late 60s, huh? My oldest son was working his way through high school as a hashish salesman. He was beautiful. He had hair down to his butt, He's had one like this all the time. He looked like one of those little dolls in the back of the car, Called his mother Man. "Hey, man, what's for dinner?" And he took that goddamn LSD like it was popcorn. They're weird, those guys. They scare the hell out of me. You see those lights all the time. You'd be right in the middle of a sentence. He'd say, "What was that?" I'd say, "I don't know." I didn't know. And my drunken mother-in-law lived with us. Yeah. And she'd say, "I'll explain it." And my 2 daughters in high school had these boyfriends who looked just like David. You put the 3 of them on the couch together, you should have watched. And they're going out the window doing God knows what every night. And they all hated my guts. And I wasn't too crazy about them, frankly. Bunch of goddamn dope fiends. And I hated their mother, but not as much as she hated me. She had one of those pre-Al-Anon tics, remember? Well, you lived in the Oceanside, the Marine town. She couldn't go downtown. There was Marines to jump her, She had both sides. And the little kids just wet their pants and walked in the walls, Seven craziest people I've ever known outside of a locked ward, Oh, it's a swell place to live. You should have been there. But I built that speech team, by God. And in a couple of years, my team won one of those speech tournaments. But I didn't say anything to the gray-haired guy. It wasn't time yet. I know when it's time. The next year there were like 12 or 13 tournaments. My team won them all. Every single tournament. But I can wait. I think revenge is better than Christmas, don't you? The next year there was a tournament. There were 25 schools in the tournament, see? And my team scored more sweepstakes points than the other 24 schools combined. Then I went up to the gray-haired guy, and I put my nose right against his, and I said, "Do you know where Oceanside is now?" He just looked blank. He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Don't you remember about 4 years ago, you said to me, 'Oceanside, where's that?'" And he said, "We just moved here from Nebraska. I didn't know where it was." I'm in the right place in Phoenix. That's the story of my life. 4 years. This guy's in his bed in San Diego every night. And I'm up in Oceanside. "I got you, son!" He didn't know it. He's just going through life. La, 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 la. And I'm dying. And that's the way I lived. That's the way I lived since I was 4 years old. And when you live like that, you have to drink. There's nothing else to do. I had to drink my whole life. I don't know what you were like, but if I hadn't drunk, I would have had to kill you, or you would have had to kill me. Or they would have had to take me away to a room with no doorknob. Anyway, right after that, my old lady and I had one of our main events, which the neighbors have come to miss so much. And I moved out again. Well, I was a great threatener of moving out. Any of you Al-Anonymous remember that? I was a great one to say, "Well, it's so goddamn bad around here, maybe I just better get the hell out." And she'd say, "Well, we can talk it over. Don't let me like it." She'd always weenie out on a deal like that, I never forget that note. I said, "Maybe you ought to just move out." And everybody went, "Yeah, go for it, Dad!" So they hurt my feelings. And I did. I moved out. I was living down at the beach where I'd wanted to live anyway. And I thought for years, if I could just unload that shrew and those dope fiend children, I'd be okay. And I'd unloaded them and nothing was okay. I was drunk all the time. I was missing work. I was just drunk and my life was going down the tubes. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And one afternoon I got out of school and I hadn't had a drink yet, and I went by the house. And my oldest 3 kids were in the family room there, and I was haranguing my wife about money. She was spending too much. And old Dave was bobbing in the background there. And I did something very stupid. To this day, I do not understand why. I turned to Dave and I said, "Dave, what's it like not to have your old man around the house?" And old Dave looked me right in the eye and said, "It's beautiful." And I told you, I'm sensitive. And I left there. He really hurt my feelings. I went back to that dump on the beach and I cursed and ranted and raved. I remember I said something like, "That woman has turned my children against me." But something strange happened to me. I did not take a drink that afternoon. And I think that's very significant. It had been a long time since Cliff had had a drink in the afternoon. And I went out and sat on the screen porch and I watched the ocean. And I watched it all afternoon into the evening, and I watched probably the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen in my whole life. And about the time that the sun was setting into the water, I had what I assume you had, or you wouldn't be in this room with me tonight. I had that moment of clarity that the big book talks about. I just saw me, and I saw what I had become. I saw what David saw, and I didn't like it. I told you, I never liked myself my whole life. I despised myself. But there had been a couple of 3 things about myself that I had had respect for all my life. And that evening I realized that I had surrendered those things for the privilege of drinking alcohol. I had turned over anything that I ever remotely liked about myself for the privilege of drinking sauce. And I didn't like what was left. And I went in the bedroom and I dug through an old sea bag that I brought when I moved out, and I had the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I had read the big book one time. You know, and being an English teacher, I thought it was poorly written. Poor syntax, I think I said. But I want to tell you, if you're new, it read a lot better this time. And I called in sick and I didn't go to work. For 3 days and 3 nights, I read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and slept and read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, slept and read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Any waking minute I read all the stories clear through the end. I especially loved the Professor and the Paradox, you know, another egotistical school teacher. That was the second edition. And I got to meet him about a year ago, which was a great honor for me. And on the third time through, it was 3 o'clock in the morning on the 13th of January, 1970. And I was on page 63 again. And I came to that prayer again, which is step 3. And in my befuddled mind, I thought, I think I'll kneel down here on this filthy linoleum floor, this dump on the beach, and I think I'll read that prayer out loud to myself. And I hadn't the foggiest idea why. I read, God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as You will. Relieve me of the bondage of self. And I had a spiritual awakening. And I knew I was going to be all right. I knew I was not in charge of my life anymore. And I hadn't the foggiest idea what I turned my life over to. I just knew I wasn't in charge. I wasn't in charge of your life anymore. I had I guess a kind of a charismatic thing. Nothing like Wilson had, wind up my yin-yang or anything like that. That's over 18 years ago, and tonight I know that I am all right. Because I have a power in my life that makes my life worthwhile. I don't know anything about God. I know 2 things about God, for sure. My God loves laughter. My God's in this room because He loves to listen to us laugh. He knows how much we suffer. He knows how much we paid to get here. I hurt everybody who ever came into my life. And I never wanted to hurt anybody, ever in my life. And that's all I did is go through my life for 44 years giving pain to other people. And I cried and I cried. And my God loves to hear me laugh now. If you're new and slick, it really sounds corny. I'm sorry. I'm corny now. But I was slick when I got here. Oh. I could only laugh slick. That's how I laugh. That's if you fell down and got hurt. I wasn't sober 3 days. I was up in a meeting up in L.A. and I went, ha! What the hell was that? Oh, it felt good. It felt like 10 million pounds taken up. And I'm not talking about when I'm up there. When I'm up there and, some goof's up here good, and we're all roaring, I can hear God talk to me. That's where I hear God, is in the laughter of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the other place, I see God every day of my life. And I was new, and the guy asked Clint Hodges this question, and Clint looked at the guy and he said, hey man, I was looking for a spiritual answer my whole life. And that hit me like I'd never known that about myself. I had always looked for a spiritual answer. I looked at funny places there. But I was always looking for a spiritual answer. And I see God every day of my life. See, I see God right now. I can't see all of you, but I can see the first 4 or 5 rows. I see God in the eyes of every sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous that I've ever known. And in the working members of Al-Anon, too. Not in somebody married to an alcoholic, but somebody who works the Al-Anon program. Howard knows I'm a good 12-stepper. I'm not good for much, but I'm good at that. I love 12-step work. Should I go get them? Boy. I like to go to a dirty, filthy place and find a dirty, filthy man. You know what I do when I get there? First thing I do is I get down and look in his eyes. You know what I see? I see what my eyes looked like when I was 4 years old. Lack of power was my dilemma. All my life. And I get that guy cleaned up and get him to a meeting. Go to a coffee shop after the meeting. sit across the table from him, and sometimes that night the power is in his eyes, and I see it. And I know guys 15 years, 16 years sober, 9 months, 3 years, 10, all those. And I got to watch the light come on in their eyes. Now, if you're new, and that really sounds corny, just do this for me. I haven't given you any advice, have I? I don't give advice. I'm barely getting by, Just do this for me. You stay here long enough to where there's somebody you know who's been sober like a year or more, and they drink again. You go look in their eyes. And if the absence of the power doesn't prove it to you, I don't know what the hell will. I never want to see that look in my eyes again, ever. And I don't think I'll have to, because I do the things that Alcoholics Anonymous asks me to do. And it's easy. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Got any salt tablets? Must be the weather in Phoenix, I don't know. Put it out there, I may need it. That night I showed up at a little guy named Bill Blake's house. And I'd met him in my travels through AA. And he impressed me. He was nuts, but seemed to be happy. So I showed up at Bill's door, 13th of January, 1970. I always like to remember standing on the porch there, I had been in charge of my life for 44 years. And that's what I accomplished. I got myself to my sponsor's porch. Alone. No wife, no family, no friends, no nothing. I always like to, I'd savor that moment. Standing there at a cold porch light wasn't on, the wind blowing. All alone. And then the porch light came on, and I've never been alone since. And Margie, Bill's wife, opens the door. Now, I'm a 5-year loser in AA. And I was an obnoxious loser, you probably have guessed. I was straightened out while I was here, very intellectual. And Margie opened the door, and there I am, big L on the forehead, loser. The brand of L. I have never seen anybody so glad to see me in my whole life. No one has ever been that glad to see me. I mean, that lady just glowed. She said, "Well," in the house I went. Pours me a cup of coffee. She said, "This is wonderful." She said, "Bill's been in such a bag lately. I don't know what to do with him. He's been going crazy. He has had nobody to work with. Oh, this is so nice." And old Bill comes home about 10 minutes later and says, "Cliff! Oh, God damn!" About a half an hour, I'm thinking, anything else I can do to help you folks out? Be glad to help any way I can. It's like, "Cliff's here, we can start AA now." But nobody's ever had to explain to me that this is a selfish program. They weren't lying. They know the great secret of Alcoholics Anonymous. The great secret of Alcoholics Anonymous is this: you can't have it unless you're willing to give it away. You can't have it unless you're willing to give it away. And they give it away better than anybody I've ever known. And it's been very easy for me in Alcoholics Anonymous to do what I'm asked to do, because I'm only doing it for me. This is a selfish program. And you do unselfish things for selfish motives. You see what I mean? Now, if you're new, I've read the book maybe 200. I'm a scholar of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love the Big Book. I read it. I study it. And I got good news for you. No place in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that says you have to do anything cheerfully. That's good news, boy. Everything I've done is, See, it took my sponsor a year and a half for me to learn that it's what you do here that saves your life. It's not what you think or what you read or what you know, especially what you think. He taught me not to listen to me. My head says, "Cliff, shut up." I have met the enemy. He lives right here. The only enemy I have lives right here. But my sponsor never told me any of these things, you see. My sponsor had me learn these things. I don't know if that's clear to you. It would be like, my wife didn't go to Al-Anon right away. And she was still nuts. She used to say rude things to me. And I told you, I was very sensitive. And I wasn't wired. The elevator did not go all the way up. And when I was new, I'll tell you, I was strange. So I would have a nervous breakdown. And I would go over to my sponsor's house. I was You're the bitch there! She said, and what she said, you used to be a drunken no-good son of a bitch. Now you're just a no-good son of a bitch. And things like that, you know. And I would, maybe pour my heart and soul, and I'd be sobbing, literally sobbing. And he'd let me all run down, and he'd say, why don't you go get Al and take him to the meeting? I thought to ask God, what time is it? He says, the horse is dead. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me tonight. What the hell has that got to do with a nervous breakdown, you know? So I go get Al. Well, you had to know Al. He was a bigger butt than me. A worse loser. And I'd go get Al, load him. He had no driver's license, of course. And I'd listen to his BS all the way to the meeting, you know. And we'd sit to the meeting, and I'd take Al home, listen to him all the way home, you know. Open the door and let Al out. And I'd feel better. And I never put that together. For a year and a half, I never put that together. Or he'd tell me to go down and set up the chairs, or make the coffee, or vacuum the rug, or do, or we're going here and we're going there. The man, they talk about 90 meetings in 90 days. The man took me to meeting every night for 2 years. Everywhere in Southern California. He would just tell me when he let me off, he'd say, I'll pick you up at 5. Oh, shit, we got to go 100 miles to Los Angeles. Or I'll pick you up at quarter to 7. At 7. San Diego. Once in a while he'd say quarter to 8. I'd say, local meeting. Never forget one night he said, I'll pick you up at 6:30. I went crazy all day. I had road maps out. Where in the hell are we going? Took me to this little town of Hemet. It's a great meeting, though, but he took me everywhere. See? And he took me, he knows me better than I know me. He took me to meetings like this. He took me to meetings where somebody shakes your hand when you come in the door or sells you something. And he took me to meetings where there was laughter and hugging and kissing, and singing each other. I can't live without that. Howard knows that, I can't live without that. Sometimes we overdo it and we kill a few people that way. But in my case, I need it. I have to have it. No laughing. He took me to about maybe 10 gray tunnel meetings, so I'd know what they were. You know what a gray tunnel meeting is. Maybe you don't have any here. That's where the 6 guys sit around the table with a bare light bulb hanging over it. And they meet every week, and they stay sober. You can get the expression that way or get hemorrhoids, either way, and sobriety's like a long gray tunnel, and you just trudge down that stuff. Every year a trap door opens and a cake comes down. You have some of those meetings. We have a tradition that says you can have those meetings if you want them. But we have a tradition that says I don't have to go. Or touchy-feely or whatever, Some of those are pretty good. With a candlelight. Whoop, is that you? I think I'm in love at this meeting. But he was very cruel to me. And if you're new, I hope you find a very cruel sponsor, if you're like me. If you're not like me, get somebody who'll pat you in the back and tell you how wonderful you are. That would have killed me. If I could have found one more person to feel sorry for me, I would be dead. My sponsor was viciously cruel to me. Third day, I was a whipper. A lot of people shake. I just would go, whoop! Nobody drank coffee around me, man. They all stayed away, You never knew. I'd just go like that, And he puts me in his Lincoln Continental. We're going to Los Angeles, air conditioning, quiet down the freeway. I kind of like that, Now sitting there just kind of twitching away. He has an electric window. He gets right beside a big semi, right by the engine. He says, love to watch those newcomers jump. I think the nicest thing he said to me in the next 5 years was, shut up. I get so ticked off. Some guys are sober an hour and a half. They say, get up, Clarence, and do 10 minutes. You know, I was not allowed to talk in the car. In the car, I said, well, I think, shut up. Nobody cares what you think. You don't know nothing. And one time, I was only sober about 3 weeks. He was chewing me out, just ripped me a new one. You know, just and I just struck back. I didn't know what the hell else to say. You know, I said, well, I have degrees, you know. You know, I do. I got several degrees. He says, a thermometer has degrees. You know where they stick up sometimes. I hardly ever mention my degrees to him anymore. But you know, I hear a lot of people get up and talk about how cruel and vicious their sponsors were, and we get a lot of laughs because he was. But that is the most loving man I have ever known in my life. He loved me enough to tell me the truth. He's always wanted nothing but the best for me. A few years ago, I had what I thought was lung cancer. And my sponsor suffers from emphysema, and he's died twice from it, you know, and they had to put the electric thing. And he was supposed to be in the hospital. I was terrified because I thought I had this lung cancer and I was going in for surgery. He wouldn't let him put him in the hospital, although he took a chance of dying himself, you know, because the whining sniveler was afraid. He had to be there to call me all the time. And if it wasn't for my sponsor and a bunch of other guys that I sponsored and that sort of thing, I probably would have killed myself, you know. And then I went in there and had a surgery, and it was a benign tumor, for Christ's sakes. Think how embarrassed I'd have been at the autopsy if I'd have killed myself. See, this program works even when you don't want it to. The most loving man I've ever known. And anybody I sponsor, Warren knows, I love cruelty too. You know, I do cruelty to newcomers forever. I'm a jelly donut one. And I get the ones when they're green and sick. First night, you know, when they're really sick. I get a jelly donut. Say, you want a jelly donut? I say, no, I don't. I say, okay. You know, so it goes out the side. But, you know, after a year and a half, I finally learned that lesson about what I do in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. I used to be a sneerer at Dr. Bob. You know, Bill wrote all the books and all the pamphlets and did all stuff. You know, Dr. Bob said, keep it simple. You know, that's really profound. No kidding, Bob. You're a man that with an MD, too. But he also said, I found out some years later, he gave me the formula for that. He said, there's love. We know what love is, and we know what service is. And that's all we need to know. We know what love is, and we know what service is. The great Jewish theologian Martin Buber said there's only really two emotions in the world. Only two. There's love and there's fear. And they are mutually incompatible. You cannot have one and have the other. You can have fear or you can have love. And Alcoholics Anonymous manifests itself through service. I live in the solution, and the solution is love. And that's how I live my life. And I believe that this program was designed for lunatics like me to learn to live in the world happy, joyous, and free. That's what the book promised me, and that's what the book has delivered to me. If you're new, I told you what I was like my whole life. See, the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous is not that I haven't had a drink in over 18 years. That's a miracle. Don't kid yourself about that. I couldn't stay safe 3... Try English, Cliff. Okay. I could not stay sober 3 days when I took antabuse. I always drank on top of antabuse. The neighbor kids used to say, let's go watch Mr. Roach glow. You know? And you could find your way to the bathroom in the light of my ears, you know. But I had to drink. And I haven't had a drink in over 18 years. And that is the miracle. But that's not the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. The miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous is I have no desire to drink. If I don't get anything from Alcoholics Anonymous but the first 30 seconds in the morning, That's enough. It's paid me back already. I don't know what you were like, but I never opened my eyes in the morning from the age of 4 on where my guts weren't like where I wasn't terrified. And I always opened my eyes like, oh, crap, I'm here again. You know, almost every morning in my life I open my eyes, I'm glad to be Cliff, and I'm glad to be where I am. I'm glad to be what I'm going to be doing. I'm glad to be among the people I live with. I walk around loose in the world in this skin comfortably. That's the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're new, you'll probably throw up when you hear this. Sometimes I live like 3 and 4 weeks at a time, joyously. That's the way it is, folks. And family turned out pretty well, too. You know, that Pesci salesman on my 4th AA birthday, he told Big Keith Carpenter, my dad has shown me how to live. And that's the nicest thing anybody ever said about me on the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, my son said I was an example to him. I am an example of the power in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, he didn't say I told him how to live or I taught him how to live. He said I showed him how to live. And he cleaned up his act, and he graduated magna cum laude from the University in California. He served 2 years in the Peace Corps because he's a spiritual man. He wants to pay the world back. You know, he kind of got a master's degree, you know, and now he makes 15 times the money I do. He lives up in the state of Washington. I went up last summer and talked in Portland. He came down and got me, and we took this river raft trip together like we love to do. And hell, he's 34 years old now, and he took me back to the hotel and got the suitcases out. You know, that big glue. You know, he put his arms around all the people going by. You know, he says, "I love you, Dad." See, you call that a fringe benefit if you want to. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. He's one of the best friends I have in the world. So he's an agriculture major. I don't ask him what he grows, for Christ's sake. You know, none of my business, you know. He did his Peace Corps in Colombia. And you know, last Christmas we were all together in a house. You could cut the love in that house with a knife. I mean, you talk about laughing and scratching and people hugging and kissing and loving each other. You know, my wife looks across the room at my wife. You know, her big brown eyes, and when our eyes met, and all this nonsense was going to all this fun. You know, we just kind of went, you know, how in the hell did we get here from there? 2 programs, you know. She's a black belt Al-Anon. She got the goddamn smile down when she releases, you know. I'm releasing you. I said the Mona Lisa was an Al-Anon. Kind of explains a ton of that. But it took both programs for us to regain our sanity. You know, and we looked across the room at each other and we just kind of like, I thought my youngest son was going to get here for 3 of them are in training for the program. I've always said that. But they're still having fun. I thought my youngest son, Chris, was going to get here first, but 33 days ago, my middle daughter, Jan, come and joined. And she sat beside me. On the way up to the airport this morning, I took by the 12 and 12 tour in the 24-hour book, and she's doing fantastic. You know, she sits beside me at the Thursday night meeting, our home group, laughs as loud as anybody. She's going to be here. She's going to stay here. But I don't want to have any decision over that. That's between them and God. I love my kids today for what they are today, and they don't have to be anything for me. They don't have to be sober. They don't have to be anything, and I don't have to be anything for them. And that's the way this program works. We live in love. We live in the solution. I'm Cliff Roach, and I'm an alcoholic. That means I can never take another drink again as long as I live. Too bad. But I told you I was sensitive, and I told my sponsor that I was sensitive. He says, "No, you're not sensitive. You're an immature son of a bitch." And that's what the program is designed for, that part of my alcoholism, you know. The steps of Alcoholics Anonymous are designed so that cuckoos like me can decrease that level of immaturity to where I live in the world most of the time comfortably. But when I say I'm Cliff Roach and I'm an alcoholic, I got a lot bigger meaning than that. I mean that I'm a member of the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. I'm grateful for every drink I ever took, every bartender I ever bit. Because it got me here to you where I have learned how to live. And I'm convinced that this program is given by a loving God so that people like me can learn to live in the world happy, joyous, and free. I love sociologists. I have to read them a lot in my work. You know, I teach these kids that are smarter than I am. I have to try to keep up with them. But sociologists are weird. They're weirder than us. Almost as weird as Al-Anons. Their favorite word is alienation. They love that word. They never just write it. They always italicize. You ever notice that? Alienation. They say that's what's wrong with Western civilization. We're alienated. You know, that there's no sense of community left anymore. No place where a person can fit and belong. And every time I read one of those clowns, I always think, why don't you drink a little more? You drink as much as I drink, you'll find a place where you fit and where you belong. See, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Mesa, Arizona, it's even better. And I fit in this room. See, I never fit anywhere in my life, and I fit in this, and I don't care whether you think I do or not. It's in here and in here. I belong here. I belong everywhere I go in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you come to Oceanside and Carlsbad, you will fit, and you will belong, and you will be loved. Warren knows that. I don't know if there's anybody in this room who really needs me. There's no way for me to know that. But I want to tell you one thing for sure. I sure as hell need you.